Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video with On Point Politics. And today we're going to be looking at the battleground states that are going to decide this presidential election from the most unbiased and expertise polling site you can find on YouTube. Hit the like button and subscribe for more content just like this. And so the swing states that I have categorized as complete toss-ups based on my election model are the states of Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, New Hampshire, Maine at large, and Nebraska's 2nd congressional district. We basically ran an election model that has about 1,000 simulations, and we updated it today. Donald Trump's odds did actually go up. He's at about 68% in the odds right now. 6 scenarios where he ties, 310 where Harris wins, 696 basically scenarios where he wins the electoral college. So he's definitely in the lead in terms of the model. And looking at the national average today from my adjusted polling average, which essentially takes all the polling data and applies party ID corrections in order to weigh the party ID properly for each poll to eliminate any polling bias. And Donald Trump right now, based out of the average from all the pollsters that you see right here, Donald Trump right now is at 48.5%, the highest he's basically ever polled in my average. Harris is at 45.7%. That is also the highest she's ever polled. I also weigh for undecided, so usually I tend to basically go ahead and pretty much filter out as much undecideds as I possibly can from the aggregate. Undecideds are at about 2.4%. Unlike RCP and 538, my undecided number is actually pretty low right now. And looking at Weston Stein, they've basically been hovering where they've been at. Kennedy, after dropping out, has been slowly going down. Eventually, he will get to 0% in the average. I expect that to probably be around the case possibly in September. I think will probably be the time that we do that. September 30th is around the day. But Donald Trump, right after Kennedy dropped out, and actually it was the day Kennedy dropped half a point, Trump actually gained around like 0.6%, 0.7% in the average when Kennedy dropped a bit, and then undecideds went down. So when you combine those two things, Donald Trump was the one that gained. So it seems to be obvious that Donald Trump has picked up some support from the Kennedy endorsement, and Harris really hasn't actually necessarily gained all that much. Kennedy did drop and some undecideds did drop this day where Harris gained about 0.4%, but Trump also gained this day as well, presumably from the Kennedy support that fell off, which was about 0.4% essentially. So that's pretty interesting. And Donald Trump and Harris are at their peaks, but it seems like Harris is flatlining around the high 45 percentile. And after that interview with her, I mean, it's going to be pretty difficult. And we have September 4th is the first presidential debate that Harris essentially refused to go to. And I hope Donald Trump has the empty podium there, because it'll be a very, very telling sign about the Harris campaign. And, you know, she has the debate in about 9 days is the actual one, which is pretty insane. And we're looking at a potential scenario where Donald Trump does get over 300 electoral votes. I mean, if he's winning the popular vote by 2 points, he's going to sweep her in the electoral college. And based on my election model, if we go over here and look at all the results that basically have over 50, counts in terms of the election model, Harris ranges anywhere from about 211 electoral votes all the way to pretty much like basically from 211 to 219 essentially. That's where she kind of ranges. She basically ranges above 219. So realistically in this map, you could probably give New Mexico and Minnesota to her probably in this toss-up map either way. So those will probably be in her column regardless. And looking at the scenario where it's the last one above 50, it is pretty much between 275 to 282. That's not good, because that basically means her best case scenario is probably getting New Hampshire, Maine at large, Nebraska 2nd, and potentially even getting Nevada. Arizona may not even be in that column, which would kind of make sense, because if we actually go ahead and look at our model right now, Arizona is technically voting to the right of Nevada. So it's totally possible that based on my election model right now, that Donald Trump probably wins Arizona before Nevada, albeit very, very slightly. And looking at the updated histogram, we see Harris's floor, again, is sitting at around that 211 mark right there. So maybe you could even get rid of Minnesota now. But either way, it's not looking good for Kamala Harris, because her best case scenario, according to my election model, is a very slim victory in the Electoral College of 281 to 257. She'd probably narrowly pick off the Rust Belt. She has around a 35 to 40% chance in each of these states, including Arizona. So her odds of winning the Electoral College are very, very slim. If you guys want to see the latest odds from betonline.com, make sure to go ahead and go to the description down below, as they do have betting odds for all of the states in the union. Looking at states like Florida, the Democrats would be the underdog. If you bet $100, you would make about $600 if Harris were to win the state of Florida, which I almost think is probably not going to happen. Georgia is one of the more competitive ones, with the Democrats actually below in the betting odds, which is pretty interesting, similar to what I have in my election odds right now. So whoever's kind of betting on Trump is looking pretty good right now. And looking at Nevada, the odds are about tied. That's sort of what I have in my model as well. North Carolina, Democrats are definitely not the favorite there, but albeit it's a close race. Pennsylvania, the odds are roughly tied. Looking at Wisconsin, Republicans are the slight underdog in this race right now. Virginia, Republicans are at a really cool spot in the underdog position. And looking at the state of New York, this is one that's pretty interesting. If you were to bet $100, you'd make $1,600 from betting on Donald Trump in the state of New York. I may possibly put it down. Who knows? We'll see. Depending on how close the race gets, I mean, we'll see what happens in the future. I may put one of these blue states down in terms of a bet. We'll see what ends up happening. But if you guys want to go look at the latest betting odds, make sure to go to the description down below. And her scenario of her getting above 50, it's around 282 to 290. So I guess effectively you could technically give her Nevada in the best case scenario to an extent, but that's about it. I mean, she would basically have a very, very narrow electoral college victory. I mean, if we look at her odds in all those states right now, her odds are fairly low. I mean, if we were to pull up, you know, for example, Georgia, she's down 30 points in the odds there. Arizona, roughly the same amount. So that's not really good either. Looking at Minnesota, she's favored by only 10 points in the state in terms of odds of going to either candidate. Looking at New Mexico, she's favored by about 20 points there. Looking at Virginia, by a pretty similar amount. Wisconsin, almost the same odds as Georgia even, which is pretty crazy. Looking at, we could go to Michigan. We could see that one. That's almost the same odds that Harris is winning Virginia by. And Maine is around the same thing as, for example, what was the state that we were looking at that was a 10-point spread? I believe it was Minnesota. So again, not really great odds in the Electoral College. I mean, her best case scenario is going to be a very slim one, or at least winning right now. And realistically, based on this, I mean, let's say you raise the threshold of how many you count. Let's say you only count the results that get over 75 results. At that point, her range is anywhere from 235 to 243. So at that point, her floor, okay, I think it just updated. So her floor, 222 to 231. Her average result is 240 to 250. And Donald Trump's most likely scenario is around the 282 to 290 range. The model's kind of updating in real time right now. But really, again, you see it's like slowly updating as time goes on. But Harris is around this 243, 251, Donald Trump 290 to 298 range, somewhere around that range. But you see Harris is performing in the average range right below the 270 mark, even right here. She's not even in the scenario 75, she's not even getting above 270 as the model is updating. Donald Trump 290 to 298 in the most likely scenario. In the lower range, he's getting around, you know, close to 322. Here, Harris 211. So really, even above 50, it doesn't necessarily change. That's kind of the range that I gave. But if you were to be even more intense and look at the result that's over 75, Harris's starts at 219, Trump's at 306 to 314 essentially, which I basically have been giving him New Hampshire. So you could say that really the best case scenario is him getting New Hampshire. To an extent, if you were to raise the threshold on the scenarios, probably not even New Hampshire. But again, his floor is pretty high compared to before. I mean, if we were to do the odds for him in 2020, I actually did test the odds. If you were to plug in the 2020 margins, his odds are really low. He's like 10%. He's like 10% the chance of the winner, which is pretty similar to most other models. And his best case scenario, I think when we modeled it out to 2020, was literally the Electoral College tie. That was like the best case scenario he got, pretty much in the range that it got over 50 results. He was like in 269, and his best case, I don't even think he got over 300 Electoral College results in his best case. I think he was hovering in the 290s, which isn't a good spot to be. And the same thing's happening to Harris right now. Her best case, she's hovering in the, not even. I mean, right now, her most likely scenario at 91 simulations is 267. And Trump's best case is 290 to 298. That's her average. Same thing with Harris. She's kind of averaging out from 235 to 259, which isn't really good. And Trump is averaging 275 to 306. That's his average. His best performance would be 410. Harris's best case would be 362, which I think is a pretty realistic. That's somewhat of a feasible best case, but models that have her getting over 360 are just a joke. Like, there are models that have Harris getting over like 500 Electoral College results. Like, that's not happening. That's just not happening. So that's essentially it right now. I mean, Donald Trump, he's favored in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania in the odds. We'll take a look at New Hampshire really quick, but I do have him ahead in New Hampshire. So he probably is ahead in the... Oh, look. Okay, Harris is actually favored in the odds in New Hampshire. So that's fairly interesting based on the simulation. Even though I have Donald Trump ahead, she's still favored in the simulation odds. So that's fairly interesting. She's also favored in Nebraska second right now. Looking at Minnesota, I would assume she's also ahead in Minnesota. The odds did kind of go down. Looking at Maine, if we were to go over there, let's see where we can find it. Right now, basically the same thing. And looking at New Mexico, I almost bet you that she's probably favored in New Mexico as well. Yep, she's also favored there. And Arizona and Nevada are effectively in the odds there. So based on the current odds right now, Donald Trump is getting 312 to 226 Electoral College votes. Make sure to hit the like button and to subscribe for more content just like this. Make sure to go ahead and follow me on X for daily updates in the description down below at onpointpolitics in all lowercase. And I will see you guys in the next video.